Hi, everyone. This is Anthony Otero from HR University. And today, in this HR short stories series, we have the pleasure of welcoming Joy Young.
Mhm.
Joy is the Chief of People at Author Health. Joy, happy Tuesday and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and happy Pride for those who are
Yes,
celebrating this month. So, want to acknowledge
yes,
that.
yes, indeed. So Joy, we're so excited for to have you this week as our guest, and certainly, getting a chance to know you a little bit. Um, can you talk to our community kind of about your career journey, kind of your, I guess, first job out of college to being in the C-suite?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, first job out of college. So I actually went to law school for a year after I graduated from University of Colorado, and that was not my calling. So I moved over to a staffing agency that was in the rental car industry in Dallas Fort Worth. And I started there by being like the office manager, and then moved into handling their orientation for new hires, and then eventually, I moved into recruiting. And I decided I really liked it. I liked hiring people and being the welcome mat to a company. And then I found out that, benefits are a good thing, an important thing to have. And this was before you could be on your parents' benefits until you were 26. So then I moved over to La Quinta, the hotel chain. And I was very fortunate to have an amazing boss, Mickey Hughes, and
Okay.
she and I are still great friends today. And she's been a mentor, but she helped to open my eyes to things outside of just recruiting. Eventually, there was a full time role in Secaucus, New Jersey, which I couldn't even find on a map before I moved. And she asked if I'd be interested. So I moved across the country from Texas to New Jersey, and worked on this large hotel property, which was in the middle of a Union Drive, which, being in Texas, I was not used to. But it was very interesting times. But I was there. This was my first, like, I guess, generalist role is what they were saying at the time. And so I was doing everything from payroll to leading orientation to training, all sorts of things. Eventually, I moved on to finance, and I was at Lloyd's Banking Group. And I started there as a contractor and was initially just responsible for like onboarding and those types of things. Um,
Sure.
and I was fortunate to find a job during that time because it was right around the time of the financial downturn. So, lots of craziness going on in the world. And they kind of rotated me around different teams in HR. And so I became a jack of all trades. And I eventually ended up taking over recruiting and global mobility. And then I moved into a business partner role. And I've kind of been in a business partner role ever since. I then moved
Okay.
on to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which cannot say enough about what a wonderful organization that was. And continues to be. And I was an HRBP there. It was a really great opportunity for me because there was lots of employee relations issues, and some of them were really complex, and so got a lot of experience there. And then for the last 7 years, I've been in the tech and startup space. So either building out an HR function and leading an HR function. And yeah, that's where I am today. So today I'm the VP of People at Author Health, and really enjoying that role.
All right. Wow, that is quite a scope of industries that you've contributed to or dabbled with what we will say.
Yes.
Just high level, kind of, what would you say some takeaways? For you working in hospitality, you working in healthcare, you working in tech. Just you know, um, takeaways because I'm sure in every industry, there's some you know trinkets that you can add in your toolbox?
Yeah. So I think in hospitality, it was all about surprise and delight. And obviously we have customers coming into our properties, and so how can we make their experience wonderful and engaging and keep them coming back? And so from the HR side of things, it was the same. Like, how do we keep our employees excited and thrilled about being here? Um, from healthcare, I think it's always the mission is the patient, and the patient is at the center of everything that we do. And I think for me, that's very fulfilling because I always want to be giving back and doing something for the greater good. And so I think that's one thing that I've always taken away from healthcare is like, how can you make the world better, your community better, those types of things. And then for tech, I think it's about speed and changing the way things operate. So as far as like, yes, we've always done banking this way, but let's try something else. And how do we make
Sure.
it so that it's more accessible to people who might not have a traditional bank in their neighborhood? So
Very, very, very important, right? You serve, you serve the customer, um, you know, at various points. We do have a couple of questions from the chat.
yes.
So thank you to the chat, for kind of, participating, and I'll, certainly add, some color into it as well. So a couple of questions, what kind of books would be helpful to get started was a question. And then, is Lomi, I believe that's your name. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Islomi also says in their organization that they have a problem with their onboarding system, and Islomi is making the recommendation for management to test day-to-day strategy by building a checklist for new hires. Just want to kind of Joy, you could chime in a little bit on that, but I would say a book, maybe this is more in the training and development space / onboarding is the first 90 days. I think that's a great book.
Yes.
To start, but and then in terms of onboarding, Islami, I'm not sure you're in a consultant capacity or you're in-house. I would say definitely a checklist is helpful. And there's another question, but Joy, any thoughts on that? Again, onboarding processes as well as any books that you think would be helpful.
Yeah. So I'll start with the onboarding, and I think yes, a checklist is definitely important. We use them all the time. The challenge is getting people to actually use them when they're supposed to, but it definitely helps you to keep things organized. And my people ops team is great about checklists and making sure things get done. So I highly encourage you to ask the managers to work with you to build out a checklist that will work for them and you and make the employee experience better. And then as for books, gosh, I mean, you hit on the first 90 days, which I think is definitely a classic. I guess recent books that I have been reading are Reimagine Inclusion, which is by Mita Malik, which, focuses on how are we going about embedding DE&I in our organization and how we should maybe be thinking about things a little bit differently. That's the one that comes to mind. I've been pretty busy lately, so
Okay.
doing much reading.
No, I look. I think that's a great book. Certainly it's Pride Month, and it's certainly that's part of part of a larger DEI component. And then I just also because I'm also HR professional myself in the community, so that was just the book. Islomi, I just wanted to shout out the first 90 days. And then the question is, what would you advise for entry level kind of beginners that trying to get into HR management? Any general advice you would have?
Ooh, okay. So I always love this question, and I think the one thing that I wish that I had learned earlier in my career was setting boundaries, being comfortable, saying no and maybe, holding your ground a little bit, because it's very easy when you're like the new or the more junior person on the team to kind of have folks like, oh, well, we can just give this to the intern or we can give this to the associate. So just, try and get comfortable setting boundaries earlier. I think the other thing is probably resilience. I mean, we're in HR, and these last 4 years and probably even before that have been quite interesting from an HR perspective, where you're trying to just kind of go with the flow of things, figure out a pandemic, et cetera. So I think you just have to be resilient and give yourself some grace. I think the other thing is to be curious, like asking lots of questions, trying to get to know many people in the organization, understand what their role does, and how your role could actually support them or partner with them. So I think that's helpful.
Okay. Okay. And sounds great. So Joy, talk a little bit about career path and kind of identifying characteristics that you say to yourself, you know what, that's an opportunity I want to run into. You certainly have had the dare I say, privilege or experience being able to just dabble, in different industries.
Yeah.
And so kind of or opportunities too. And you're in HR, like what are certain things that you look at and say, you know what, this is something I kind of want to put my hat in the ring? Because many times you could have a role and you can be comfortable or not sure.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give our community some insight.
Yeah. So I think early on in my career, I was very much focused on just getting the basics of HR down, getting that foundation, understanding employee relations, understand how you recruit, compensation. I even did payroll for a bit, which not my favorite thing, but I think I wanted to make sure that I understood how HR touches the entire employee life cycle. And so I was always raising my hand saying, yep, I'll work on this project with this team. Or if payroll was staying late and they needed help on something, I would, offer up my time, because I am naturally like a curious person and I just love learning things. And so I, would always be the one that be like, oh yeah, Joy would be interested in this. So, and I was never afraid to like roll up my sleeves and do what needed to be done. I think as I began to grow in my career, it was more about how do I become more of a partner to the business. So yes, I know HR and I can, do all of those things, but what else can I do to really make an impact on the overall business and the goals, and make sure that, HR is seen not only as having a seat at the table, but also a voice. And so, it was really about building relationships outside of HR, just reaching out to people, even on LinkedIn, and just being like, hey, I'm curious about product. I've never done that before. Talk to me about your day to day. And, people love talking about themselves. So, and so, I would just reach out and just try and learn things. And, I built up some relationships where people are like, hey, you might want to check this out, or, hey, Joy, I thought about you for this. And so, just by reaching out and trying to establish some relationships, I think that helped a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Talk about, you've held, VP high level roles, multiple companies. Talk about what you would think are the critical qualities and or skills that are needed to provide value to the business and perform.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm obviously coming at this with a tech or a startup lens on it. So I feel like sometimes, the VP of people role or HR people roles in general in this space are, you get to wear a lot of different hats all at once. So I think one thing is empathy, actively listening, putting myself in other shoes, asking questions, and really acknowledging where my biases are, and even sharing that in a conversation depending on what is being discussed. Um,
Sure.
then the other thing I think is you have to be flexible. I mean, change is the one thing that's going to be guaranteed, not only in your job but in life. So you have to be ready to pivot. I think that just being very rigid, it will harm you as you move up your career path. I think you also, especially being in HR, have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Sometimes you're not going to have the most popular opinion, but you should still speak up. And as long as you have good rationale to support it, speak up. I think that you don't know who you might be impacting in the room. So don't be afraid to say it. And then I think influencing. HR, we can't operate in a silo. What we do impacts not only our teams, but teams outside of ours. So, making sure that you're connecting with your stakeholders, figuring out ways to get real-time feedback about any initiatives that you are planning or will be planning. I think those are critical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. There are additional questions in the chat, but I will reserve it for later.
Okay.
Chad, just want to make sure that everyone, has an opportunity to ask all their questions. So, but definitely, Joy, you let us know. I also want to be respectful of your time.
Oh yeah, sure.
So talk about challenge. The biggest challenge or challenges you face in your career, whether it's you managing your career or a project or that it was some challenges to bring to completion, and how did you overcome?
I know everybody says this. The pandemic was probably a very pivotal time in my career, and I think, gosh, there was so much learning from that, because it wasn't only the pandemic, and then there was lots of social justice movements going on, and so it's like, I'm worried about my employee safety. So at that time, we were in an office environment, and you have to move to remote, and we had such a great office culture, and now we're all going to be home for 2 weeks or so, we thought, right, originally. Right. And so I think that it was really a test, because at that time I didn't have like a full team. There was me and then a coordinator, and we were trying to figure out how to get about 70 employees working fully remotely within a matter of days. And so that was stressful. And then on top of that, I think the connectivity, like how do we make folks feel still connected and engaged, because we're not going to be in office. We're not going to have, the monthly birthday celebrations like we did. So then, it was really thinking a lot outside the box. I like thinking outside the box, but this was like, how outside of the box can we get? And so,
right.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we did was, again, relying on my relationships and network. And I convinced our real estate broker, Aiden, to demonstrate his culinary skills. So we were all stuck at home. We gave our employees a stipend to go out and buy some ingredients to make Aiden's tomato sauce.
Okay.
And then we had another employee who did comedy on the side on the weekend. So we turned it into like dinner and a show. So Aiden showed us how to make pasta with his tomato sauce, and we all logged in for that. And it was great because people had their families, the kids were involved. And then Sam he did his comedy routine. And it was like this really just beautiful moment that didn't cost much, but had such a big impact on our team. And so I think that that's something that I will always look back on, is how we were able to kind of keep that culture, even though we were remote. I think the other thing that's been a challenge is maybe walking away from an opportunity that just didn't align with me from a moral and an ethical perspective.
Okay.
I think too often, especially I feel like a lot of HR leaders, we want to fix it. We are going to fight the good fight, and we're going to make it work. But sometimes you just need to make that decision to walk away for your own sanity, and sometimes even for the greater good of the company. If you aren't able to give, 110%, then it might be time to move on.
Okay, I appreciate your candor.
Yeah.
Definitely talking, through that, and kind of for, our community, definitely, you want to find, um, a place where you can do good work, and certainly, the organization can change as well. The organization grows, you can grow,
Yeah.
and so and that's that's fine, right? Kind of talks to our earlier question as well, is kind of things you look at. You talked about how you put yourself out there, right, to kind of volunteer, to kind of do stretch projects, and you also seems like you reached out for informational interviews, but on the other side of it, it sounds like you did an internal check-in with yourself in that
Yeah.
particular experience. It seems that you probably were going a different direction career wise, and so you made that decision. So again, thank you for kind of sharing that. I want to get to ask you a little bit about your involvement in all of HR. Got a chance to learn a little bit more, do some research about Troop HR. It seems like a company that you're a part of. Do you want to kind of talk to the audience about kind of your involvement there, and also how uh, in addition to you working as a senior leader at Author Health?
Yeah, no. So, Troop HR is a group of HR professionals started by Tracy Avon a few years ago, and I think we're over 1,000 members now. So, grown pretty quickly, and I honestly cannot say enough about the organization. It has been a tremendous resource. So not only do you get professional development, so there's tons of courses, there's resources, there's certifications we can do as a part of our membership. And then we also get some social activities. So there's like cookie baking and wine tastings and all of those things, because I think some of the other organizations that I've been members of, like, they forget that, that downtime component or that social activity component. So I actually get to know my troop members. Some of them have been great mentors and continue to be great mentors. And then the highlight of being a troop member is the annual conference. So we just had our second one in Naples, Florida at the Ritz-Carlton.
Sure.
And it was, I will tell you, marvelously priced for the amount that you get. But it's a nice time to recharge, reconnect with people that you might not have seen for the year. And then really just like learning opportunities that not only focus on, how to be a better HR professional, HR leader, but also just how to take care of yourself. Because again, HR, we are, oftentimes trying to make sure that everybody else is taken care of, and we don't necessarily take care of ourselves. So it's been really nice. I can't say enough about the tremendous people that I've met and I continue to meet. And I think that everyone should have a network like this, like, or be a part of this type of community.
Very nice, very nice. And certainly, certainly, HRU, we have a, community of, HR enthusiasts, and as well as, HR professionals in the field. But certainly, the more HR, the better.
Yeah.
And so definitely, wanted to for you to, have an opportunity to talk a little bit about it. I wanted to ask you about a little bit about DEI. We talked about it, at the beginning of this call. Can you talk to me a little bit about DEI initiatives that you have been part of, and just share a little bit about why you think it's important?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the world is changing. It's
Sure.
very inclusive, and we need to make sure that our employees, our talent, feel like they can be their authentic selves at work. I think I started early on in my career being a part of different diversity initiatives, in particular at Lloyd's. This was before, this was, I guess, in the early days of DE&I. And, we did things. We had some employee resource groups. We did like what were they called? It was like employee potlucks where everybody brought in foods that represented their cultures. We had different cross-cultural trainings and unconscious bias. And so, that was, my first like kind of taste into things. But now I'm really focused on trying to embed this into the companies that I work with, because it's not really for me like a separate thing. Like DE&I isn't a separate initiative. It needs to be a part of the fabric of our organization. And I will say I'm very fortunate at Author that I have a lot of leadership buy-in, which I think is probably one of the most important things if you're going to be trying to move forward with DE&I initiative. So I think that is critical, and I'm very lucky that my peers are very supportive of the things that we're trying to build and incorporating them into our processes and moving beyond just, recognizing heritage months or, doing some trivia. We are actually trying to make sure our recruiting processes align with this, our training and development, career development, all of those things. I also am focused a lot more on data and moving beyond just like the traditional DE&I data, but, looking at, gender identity and making sure that we're looking at our caregivers. So we want to make sure that we're able to support all of our employees, no matter where they're at in their lives and, how they identify and things of that nature. So it's super important to me, because when you are able to make people feel seen and appreciated at work, I mean, it's just it's just going to magnify all of the good work that you're doing and just really be moving your company forward.
I agree with you. Ditto. I agree with you. Let's talk a little bit about talent management. You talked about, early in your career, you wasn't, kind of in a staffing firm and recruitment. What is your philosophies, strategies on retaining top talent?
Yes. I feel like I get this question and I think about it all the time. I'm like, what is the right answer, right? So for me, I think it's important to invest in your people leaders and in their development, because your talent is going to have, the most interaction with their direct people leader. And so I think that that's important to make sure that they are trained and have the resources and tools to actually lead their teams. And then making sure that they are comfortable, like having some difficult conversations and knowing when to, check in with their teams about, different things that might be going on inside of work and outside of work. I think it's also important that from a company perspective that we have a very clear identity of who we are, what our brand represents, what we stand for. And that means having a great mission, making sure that our benefits align with all the things that we say we represent, and, trying to differentiate ourselves by highlighting some of these things. Yeah. I also think having a good marketing partner is essential, because they are great thought partners and can, change some language to make things really like pop and be really exciting. And then I think once you get folks in the door, it's going to be important to make sure that you have a clear path for employee development and succession planning, so that they can see how they can grow with the company.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was my next follow-up question on employee development and succession planning. So, whether your current role now or your previous roles, like, do you partner with finance, or you partner with compensation and kind of building out, career ladders, or just how, depending on the role, like what's in terms of building out, a career and career progressions, and some roles are just probably individual contributors, and totally
Right.
get that, right? Just what has been your experience with that?
Yeah, so I do think it is a partnership with finance, and if I had a comp department, yeah, comp would be awesome. For now, me and a few others on my team are kind of serving as the comp department for right
Okay, okay.
now. But I feel like I'm always coming at things with a little bit of a risk lens. So I think about it, okay, like what are the most critical roles, right? And
Sure.
those are the roles that, heaven forbid, tomorrow, people left that role, it would cause a significant disruption to our business. So I think about that. I think about, our competition, like who are our competitors, where we're trying to get talent from, what are the critical skills that we're going to need as an organization to be competitive, and what does that look like? I then look internally at our talent and consider the goals that we have set for ourselves and what we need to achieve. And then, it's time, I guess, to build from there. So, creating development plans, giving opportunities for development, giving regular feedback. And then I'm also looking at our data. So what is our engagement survey telling us? Are we starting to see like a higher level of attrition in certain roles, and, make adjustments from there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Just a few more questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just so excited that you invited me. So
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Joy. So, I do have a couple of questions, but I did want to get to a question from Abor.
Ooh.
Thank you, Abor, for correcting me. I thought so. Islame is your username on YouTube.
Mhm.
So Abor was talking about that. Checklists are not commonplace from their home country in Uzbekistan. Um, I how, I guess, can you, Joy, kind of uh, attempt to get buy-in from leaders to use a checklist? I guess, what would be the elevator pitch
Yeah.
for kind of the end user?
Yeah. And I also want to just, respect too, and I think Abor for sharing that he's in Uzbekistan. This kind of reminds me of my time at Slice when we had a large part of our population, our employee population, was in Macedonia. And so, what works for the US does not always work for Macedonia. So then it's like, okay, let me take off my US lens here and think about the perspective of where where this employee population is coming from. And so some of the things just didn't make sense. So Abora, I would be checking. First, I would provide them with some data. I would say, okay, by not doing this, it's caused X to happen. Like we've had higher turnover, or I don't know if you're doing surveys, but are you seeing lower results in your onboarding surveys, things of that nature? And then I would explain to them, this is what the results could look like if we implemented this checklist. It will lead to, better retention, improved employee satisfaction, or whatever. I would also ask questions to them, like, what is their concern? What is preventing them from wanting to try this out? And then maybe if you get some folks that are like, they don't really have true objections, maybe you can say, well, let's try and pilot it for, I don't know, 30 days or 60 days and see what type of feedback we get. Because I think sometimes, like I said, change. Nobody really is like, ooh, I'm excited about another change, unless, maybe you're winning the lottery, but but you're not. So you kind of have to, negotiate a little bit, be patient. And then sometimes you might just say, okay, is this the hill that I'm going to die on? Or maybe I need to go back and rethink it. And maybe it's not a checklist. Maybe it is, I don't know, a system instead that we need. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Thank you, Joy, for kind of giving your thoughts. Uh, kind of a little segue. What is your philosophy, thoughts on HR technology? You've been in tech, in terms of health startup. Kind of, how do you see technology kind of impacting HR?
Yes. So I love technology. It's made my life easier, so much easier. And so I am a fan, although I do know that there is good and bad technology. So I'm not blind to that fact. But I do think, AI has already been a game changer for HR. Admittedly probably rely on Chat GPT for a lot of communications that don't really want to take 30 minutes to try and draft. So ChatGPT has been helpful from that perspective. I think in the future, I think we're going to see a lot more technology around making the employee experience more personalized.
Okay.
For example, like when you think about our benefits offerings as a company, I might not be as interested in, a high deductible health plan as I would be having, more contributed to my 401k, or somebody else might want, you know, student loan help assistance and things like that. So I think we're going to start to see a little bit more personalization around that to really make the experience of the employee more authentic to themselves.
Hmm.
And then I think the other thing is like now that we're in this remote and hybrid space, that we'll probably see some more technologies focused on how to help people connect and rebuild some of that office culture, since people are going to be pretty spread out. So those are my thoughts about that.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. Very, 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 very nice. All right. Can you talk a little bit about just more directly about initiatives you have taken for well-being? You talked about connecting office, in terms of kind of uh, having a positive office culture, albeit virtually. You talked about how the pandemic affected kind of the way of work.
Yeah.
What is your, kind of, philosophy on, employee well-being?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's like a lot of resources and tools out there, right? And platforms that do a great job of helping with employee well-being. But I do think that there is more work to be done. And it's I don't necessarily know if we always get to the root cause of things when it comes to well-being. I think again, it goes back to your relationship with your people leader. And I think that's important because you're spending so much time with this person and your team. So if that isn't great, then that's not really going to be great for your well-being. I
Sure.
think that change management is critical, especially being in tech and startup space. There's a lot of change. Like we Wednesday you're doing one thing, Thursday another. So I think being able to provide employees with resources and tools to navigate through that is helpful. But from a leadership perspective, there's we have to do better at like communicating the changes effectively and making space for people to have certain types of reactions depending on what that change is. So I think that we have to be respectful of that. I think the other thing is recognition.
Okay.
Somebody is doing great work, might not be as visible as whoever designed the new website. So how do you make sure that that person is feeling appreciated? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like bells and whistles need to be out, but just enough for your manager saying, "Hey, I thought you did a great job on that," and really highlighting that and just showing appreciation that way. Or at Author, we have the Pulitzer Praise Slack channel, and people will shout each other out for just helping or doing something above and beyond. So, yeah.
Very, very, very insightful. Definitely. And whatnot. So, love the call out, about some roles maybe more client or customer facing, but that doesn't mean a role, since you've been in finance, back office
Yes.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're not, they're not the backbone or the nuts and bolts, to keep the lights on, so to speak. So, that definitely everyone plays a role. I have two more questions, and then I'll go to the chat to wrap up.
Okay.
What have been impactful HR initiatives that you've led or contributed that you are proud of, and why?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, okay, Anthony. Let's see. Gosh, there's been some moments in my career. I think one of the things, once I have understood benefits offerings better, is I've been able to implement plans that offer richer benefits to our employees, but also save the company money. I think that was, you're always nervous when you're playing around with people's benefits and compensation. So you never know how that's going to go. I think during the when we were having, all the social justice movements around the time of George Floyd's murder, there was a concern about whether or not we should address this in the company or not. And I was grateful that I had my leadership team peers who supported me and encouraged us to have a broader conversation with our employees. And it led to some good discussion. It led to some things that we could do differently as a business. So I feel good that we went there. And I think it just helped to build some more trust with our employees. Those are the two that come to mind right now.
I think those are huge. I mean, this conversation, we really didn't talk about total rewards. Right. So, for the HR community, it has benefits compensation.
Yeah.
But there's a saying, benefits are very personal.
Yes.
And so right. So you alluded to this before. Someone may want tuition reimbursement. Someone may want, a high deductible health plan. Some may want pet insurance.
Yes.
Right. And so some may want, parental leave that's more extensive than the state that they're working in. Right. So there are different things about that. Just curious on the on the benefits piece. Kind of was that what stemmed that was that just more operational excellence for the request from the business? Was it more feedback from employees to kind of shop around? Were you in, like, at the end of a previous contract? Kind of what led to that?
Yeah, I think so. I've done it a couple times now, and the first time was there was a company goal to see where we could make some savings, and each
Sure.
team was tasked with, like, where can we do that? And obviously benefits, bonuses, all those things are up there on the higher end of the scale. So it's really fortunate to have a really good broker, Josh Mindell, and said, hey, like, what could we do? What is possible? And he was great about modeling a few different scenarios and, walking me through what could be best case, worst case, those types of things. And I think that was one reason that drove it. I was like, okay, we got this goal. I want to contribute. And this is what I did there. So the second time was, after the second time, I was just like, there's better things out there that are probably a little bit cheaper than what we're paying for. And our employees are not getting what they should for the amount that they're paying for. And so I think that's what drove it. It was like, I just knew that there was some better options out there for our organization and our employees at the end of the day. So
that's great. That's great. Coming from you, because, a lot of times there's a misconception that HR is not a business function. And this is a great example how you're partnering with the business to, make resources stretch further, as well as get the most for kind of, employees in return.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I definitely think that's if you think that's powerful. My last question before we go to the chat and close. What do you think are the essential skills to thrive as an HR professional?
Oh, to thrive as an HR professional. I think, just always continuing to learn. I think that's going to be important. Not only learn things that are going on in the HR space, but also just in whatever industry you're in, so that, you're always linking, your HR function back to the business goals. I think it is important for, again, boundary setting. Cannot say that enough because you can very much get easily burned out. And I'm so guilty of it. And I have to tell my team, do not do what I'm doing. And like, but now I'm like, I know it's not enough to say that to them. I need to actually set the example. So trying to make sure I log off. I think that you should also have a core group of people that you can count on to guide you in your career. I think you need to have multiple mentors, especially as you are moving up in your career at various stages. There's going to be folks that are going to be able to offer you different guidance as you continue to develop in your career. And yeah, I think those are the things that are coming to mind.
And I think I definitely think those are powerful. I mean, you've definitely have implemented them, and you've definitely, work well for you. Just want to make two quick comments to the chat. Arbor, I know you had questions about, how can you connect with HRU? Either myself or someone from HRU will reach out to you directly in terms to help you. And then Joy, you got a shout out. And the shout out says, Joy is a true HR leader in every way possible. Thanks, Joy, for sharing your insights. Congrats. So, thank you for sharing out Joy. We definitely went through an array of topics.
We did,
including some bonus questions, but it was all good and whatnot. So, Joy, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and your experiences, and I appreciated how in depth we went into various areas of HR as well as your own career, as to help our community to learn different tidbits of HR leaders such as yourself. So thank you so much for spending this Tuesday evening with us.
Oh, well, thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone for taking time to listen in. I really appreciate it. So,
all right, Joy, everyone, have a good evening.